So for the folks who just walked in, who haven't been part of the day's proceedings, this is my first book. This is my debut book. It's called Cold Truth. It's being published by HarperCollins and it's out right now. It's on sale at Rachna. And first up, thank you, Ramandai, for doing this. I think I've always dreamt about coming to Rachna Books and doing book reading of stuff that is actually good. Alright, so what is Cold Truth? Cold Truth, at its heart, is a mystery. I think I had a little difficulty when I was trying to figure out what genre it belonged to. I started writing it as a horror book. It became a crime fiction book. But now, I think while everybody it's being marketed as a crime fiction debut, I think at its heart, Cold Truth is a mystery. Like most mysteries, it starts off with a very simple premise. It starts off with the disappearance of a 10-year-old girl from East Delhi. Her name is Sakshi Prakash. And looking into the disappearance of Sakshi Prakash is a Sikkimese journalist who's now living in Delhi. Her name is Gloria Lama. So now what you read when you kind of pick up Cold Truth is Gloria Lama's investigation of into the disappearance of Sakshi Prakash. Now, unlike most books, Cold Truth does not employ a traditional narrative structure, which is the author is not the voice of God. The author is not telling the audience what's happening. Instead, what the audience or the reader kind of experiences is what it feels like when you're part of an investigation. So the entire story is presented through case files. It's presented through WhatsApp conversations that the writer is having with someone else. It's told through surveillance footage. Somebody has actually taken down the transcription of the surveillance footage that shows something horrible. It shows it's made up of classified documents that have been released by the Russian government. It's made up of classified documents that have been hacked and procured by a hacker from a biogenetics firm. So it's if you remember a genre of movies, it's called found footage. So you've had a lot of famous horror movies in that genre, Blair Witch Project, you've had Paranormal Activity. So think of this as a found footage book. Nowhere in the book does it tell you that it's a book. It's pretty much just a collection of case files. And even when the author, that's me, features in the book, I am a character in the book. I am someone who found the notes and therefore am publishing this book. So that's Cold Truth. It's a different read. I think you'll enjoy reading it, and as a few people here will bear witness to, I think it's an overnight read. That's about the book. What I'd like to do is I'd like to just read a small, I think about 4 to 5 pages. And after that, I'm so glad that Tashi is here to kind of just chat with me, and hopefully through our conversation, you'll probably learn a little more about the book. So at this point in time, the author, that's Gloria Lama, has decided to pursue Sakshi's disappearance, and she's doing this with the help of an Indian Army ex-military intelligence officer called Abhay Chaudhary. So they've decided to kind of start the investigation. Yes, so that was an extract from Cold Truth. All right, so that.
In the beginning, I'd like to congratulate you on your book.
Thank you.
I read it and it was a wonderful read.
Thank you.
And it's a nice thing that another of our Sikkimese writers are getting published, and by HarperCollins. So that's quite a great achievement. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I'd like to start with some standard questions, like when did you know that or decide when you're going to be a writer?
I think I was in the 5th standard or something. I was reading a lot of Hardy Boys books at that time, and I decided to just copy the Hardy Boys and write my own version. And that was the first time I think I wrote like some book, a terrible book, but nonetheless. But after I wrote that, I think I was as interested in writing. But then I think I started reading Stephen King, and that's what really made me believe that I could write and I wanted to be a writer. So I think it started when I was in the 5th standard. I think I was about 10 years old at that time. But it got really serious, I think, when I was 14 or something, when I started actually working on big stories.
Okay. Your stint in, I think you were a journalist with now, you've done your mass comm, right? And then you went into advertising and techno-journalism and all. So during that period, you had already started on your work.
Yes, so I think the most fertile period when I actually went and when I wrote a lot was during my college, my first year in Kirodimal. I didn't learn anything there. It was a terrible college, but I think because of that, I just had a lot of free time to just sit and write stuff.
Okay. With regards to the book, where did you get the idea of this story? When did you get the idea of the story, and how did you think you were going to write a book on that?
So the first version of this story was completely different from this. I think the first version of the story, there's only one thread that kind of still, it's consistently there, which is about what if something incredibly personal but terrible happened to you, which was if something terrible happened to your body and you had no way to control it. That was a thread that kind of got me started, and I think that emerged when I was in school. Some seniors in school told me about this. I think it's an urban legend because I heard other schools also, they say it happened to them as well, which is that a senior in school went to Delhi, spent the night with a girl, woke up the next morning and the girl was not there, and written on the mirror was welcome to the world of AIDS. So that was something that kind of stuck in my head. I was like, what if you just wake up one day and something incredibly terrible has happened to you, to your body, and you had no way to control it. So that was a thread that kind of got me started. I was thinking about that, kind of got me thinking about it. So the first version of this book, I think it was all about organ trading. So I'd written a revenge thriller about organ trading, and I remember I was quite happy with it. I wrote it. I was influenced by a lot of noir. I was reading Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett and things like that. So I was influenced by noir, and then one day I finished the manuscript. I was very happy with it. Logged on to YouTube, and I saw there was a B-grade Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. The trailer had just come out, which had the exact same story. So then I decided, okay, no, I'm going to rewrite the book. So yeah, that was the first version of the book, and then I just kept rewriting it. And yeah, this current version, I think I worked on it for about 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. You mentioned in the book that you finished it 14 years back.
Yeah.
Then I was wondering, why did it take so long to write? I mean, so you kept changing the way you say it. You kept.
So
changing
I wrote other stuff. I kept coming back to this. I took some things from the other stuff I'd written and put it back here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Talking about your characters, they're basically the two main characters. You just said, I was hoping you would not say the name. I thought you would let the name be a surprise. And you don't know the journalist is a woman till late in the second chapter. And then you give away the name Gloria Lama only at the end.
Yeah.
So why did you delay it? Why did you delay it?
So the fact that she was I don't think I'm great at writing characters. I think what I'm good at is writing character interactions. So I knew that for the story to progress, that there would be certain character interactions that would need to happen. And when I had kind of written it quite a bit, I realized that there was no way to differentiate between the two protagonists, because a lot of the writing is just dialogue. There's no he stopped and looked at the moon and then he said to her. So there's no context building sentences. There's just dialogue after the other dialogue. So I realized that I had to kind of show that these two people are different without me, the author, stepping in and cheating and saying that no, this person's character is this way. So to do that, I decided to the easiest thing to do was, okay, have a gender break so that I can play around with the way they say, the way one person speaks versus the other person speaks. So I decided to kind of have that gender play there. So that's why Gloria Lama, she speaks in a certain different way than what Abhay Chaudhary, the second protagonist, speaks. The reason why I made her Gloria Lama, quite honestly, was because I wanted to set a large part of the book in Sikkim. I wanted Sikkim to be a big part of it, but as I wrote the story and as more threads started coming in, I realized that the third act which I had built would not be in Sikkim. The third act would be in Antarctica. So then I realized, okay, then there's no Sikkim in this. So I decided that, you know what, let me go back. Let me try to look back at the characters and see, because I wanted it to be, I thought it was important that at least there was something to do with Sikkim in the book. And that's why I decided to kind of name
that. That was very pleasing, but again, it is like it came out too late.
Yeah.
It came out too late.
Yeah.
And the other character is Abhay Chaudhary.
Yes.
So he's quite a character in the sense that he's like a flawed hero. So he can do everything. He can take care of himself. But again, he has a drinking problem. It's like kind of some of these UNESCO, his character Harry Hole, and then we have Ankush Saikya with his another character. So was it? Did you read all these and you made him something like that, or?
So I think the first version of the book, when I said I was completely influenced by noir, it was pretty much, it had all the tropes of noir. Abhay Chaudhary was a private detective who had a drinking problem, who stood in the rain, photographing suspects and stuff. So it was cliched, it had all the tropes. That's when I kind of had the conversation and I wanted to rewrite the book. And when I realized that, you know, it wasn't important to the story what Abhay Chaudhary was in the past. It was important to the story, but what Abhay Chaudhary does in the future. That's why even the hints that I kind of give around Abhay Chaudhary's past or what has happened to Abhay Chaudhary are literally just throwaway lines. They are just lines that say, okay, he might have this problem, he may not. Because I realized that at the end of the day, perhaps the writing was becoming a little too... I wanted to write my version of noir rather than I just wanted to write my story. So that's why I decided to cut out all of that and wanted to kind of start afresh with the character. That's why it just, like, his character building just became through these throwaway lines, and I didn't go too deep into the fact that he has a drinking problem or the fact that he had a heavy past with a lot of tragedy in it.
But he is a very interesting character. Will you be taking him into the next book, or you could take him actually? He's a very interesting character.
Could. I mean, I think I would like to think that the book is a self-contained capsule. I think one of the big conversations so when I went to Bombay and I was talking to folks from Sony and Netflix and all, they were like, okay, can we make a season 2? So I was like, I can write a season 2 for you, but it's not very organic. Yes, Abhay Chaudhary could be a character, but in my head right now, he's done. That this is his book, this is his story, and it's kind of done.
And reading the book is like, it was like, in a way, watching a movie. So I'm sure it will make a great series also, yeah? And you were talking about, you pitched it with Bombay.
There is the Mumbai Film Festival, it's called MAMI. So they have a section called the authors, they call it Word to Screen, which was started by this publisher called Arpita Das, then there's Kiran Rao, who's a director, and there was one more, and Sonam Kapoor. So they came together and they started something called Word to Screen, which is basically a place where content creators, movie filmmakers, studios, etc., they can directly interact with authors. Because right now, there is a massive demand for original content, original stories, because I think everybody's coming out with their own streaming platform, everybody has a movie studio. I think the big push right now is Reliance is coming out with Jio Play or Jio Live, which is like a live streaming platform. So because of that, I think they were all excited. So I went down, Harper kind of asked me to come down to Bombay and I kind of pitched it. It was a very sales pitch. I just sat at the Harper table and these directors and producers would come, they would have 2 minutes and I would just do a 2-minute pitch and tell them about the book. So,
so last time we had a publisher who had come here. So we were just talking about how's the book business doing and all. So he was saying the book business isn't doing, but it's a perfect time for writing because of all these Netflix, HBO,
I think it's the same scene in America with the comic books industry. I think comic books, it kind of plateaued, it tanked, but then they suddenly realized that you can make multi-billion-dollar movies with this thing. So suddenly the rights for all these Marvel comics, while each issue in its prime, back in the 70s and 80s, each issue would sell something like 40,000 copies, 50,000 copies. Now, a best-selling issue sells something like 15,000 copies, but you still have like all the studios interested in each story. So I think it's not yet started in India.
But it's still, I mean, like, you have Netflix coming with Sacred Games.
Yes.
And then you have
Amazon.
Recently, Ghoul also came out.
Yes,
so it's a good time.
I think Anurag Kashyap, and so he was at Word to Screen. Him and Vikram Motwane have this studio called Phantom Films.
Phantom Films, yeah.
So they are doing a lot. They are looking for independent story writers. They are looking for people who can make series on Netflix and Amazon Prime and Sony's own thing. I think all of even guys like T-Series and Dharma Productions and Yashraj, for example, surprisingly, because I thought, so there's this Harper book called How I Became a Farmer's Wife, which everybody loved. Everybody was coming to the table just to talk about that book. And everybody thought it would make a great romantic comedy. But, for example, like Yashraj came and they were really interested in my book, and I was very surprised. I wasn't even pitching to them. I thought they wouldn't be interested. So I was just sitting there, and they were like, no, everybody wants to kind of go on to another tangent. Everybody wants to explore different genres. So it is a very, very interesting time to be a writer.
Coming back to the book, all the technical details, like all the emails, the video footage and all, it makes sense that you were a techno-journalism. You were into techno-journalism. But like, it was very surprising to see the book placed in Russia and Antarctica. Most of the book is placed there. I think the India part is just in the beginning, and then the scene moves to there. So, like, crime fiction normally is based in a certain place, in a certain location, but you went all over. So, how did you do it? I mean, what was the...
So, I think I wrote the book as a 3-act thing. I mean, in my head, I was writing a 3-act play or film or a book. So I knew that all 3 acts, it's like when you look at a 3-act play, the stage changes. So I wanted a little bit of, like for the person to also, when they're reading it, when the reader is reading it, there should be something refreshing that's happening in between the changes of the stage. Okay. So that's why I decided. I think a large part of Russia is interested in, because I think what I wanted the book to have is, I was very, very inspired by conspiracy theories. I was inspired by, what if the government was involved in something that happened ages ago, 70s, 60s, all these ridiculous experiments that happened. I mean, in the US, you had something literally that the CIA did called MK Ultra, where they were giving LSD to college students to figure out if they can control their minds. So I was really interested in conspiracy theories, and I was kind of figuring out what's a country or what's a place with a lot of like a blank slate in terms of history, where you don't know what actually happened. And I realized that there is an actual a village called Butugichag in Russia, in rural Russia, where the first migrants who went there in the 17th century, they found a field with about 14 to 15,000 skeletons of just people and animals. And later on, when the Russians opened up gulags there, where they were forcing prisoners to kind of work there, prisoners just started dying strangely. So I really found that fascinating, and I wanted to kind of take that thing and build it into my story. The other story I learned about was, there's this Russian station, research station in Antarctica called Komsomolskaya, which opened in 1953, and for some strange reason they shut it down in 1961. And nobody knows why they shut it down. But I just made up something that this is why it shut down. So I just found these interesting places from around the world and kind of tied it to a thread. So it never feels, at least I'd like to believe that it never feels like, this place is just coming, it's just gratuitous, like the reason why he has introduced Russia. But I think it flows organically, but I was interested in all these histories of these different places, and I wanted to kind of bring them to life. That's why
they are actual places.
They are actual places.
Okay.
Yes.
And that other place is like Area 51, huh?
Yeah, it is a little bit like Area 51.
Okay. And other thing was in the book I found even your Russian was quite good. So where did that come about? The Russian and the biotechnology part, and did a lot of research go into it?
So I kind of told some people in the morning also, I think Google was my research. I just thought of a thread. I want to find out what happens, what is the process involved in when a kidney fails. So I kind of just looked it up and Google had all the answers. I mean, yes, I went through a lot of stuff on Google, but that was kind of my place. I think Russia, I used to read a lot of American political thrillers when I was growing up. A lot of Ludlum, a lot of Frederick Fawcett, a lot of Tom Clancy. And they were all interested in Russia. So I had some fascination for Russia from that time. And there were people in my family, from my mom's side of the family, who actually went to Russia to study. Russia was always there. I was reading about Russia. I'd watched movies where the Russians are always the villains. So I mean, I think this kind of came into the story.
Okay. And this book trailer, this is a new aspect which has come about now in the publishing industry. I've seen Amish's trailers.
Yeah.
Those trailers are like actually cinema, it's like movie trailers. Yeah. So what is this new genre of book trailers?
So I think marketing has become an entire thing for books now, because what they've realized is that it's not enough for a writer to be good or the book to be good. You have to be marketable, and you need to know your marketing. So fortunately, I was in advertising for 3 years. So because of that, I kind of know what it takes to do marketing. But like, for example, Harper told me that I would have my own publicist, that there would be an entire marketing plan that would be drawn out where I would have inputs, and the book trailer was a part of the marketing plan. So they wanted a hooky kind of thing to show people at the film festival. So they made the trailer just for the film festival. They asked me to kind of create a trailer by myself, so I created a trailer which I shared on social media. So that was just something I kind of shot by myself. But yeah, I think trailers are something. I think Facebook Live they've asked everybody to do kind of Facebook Live. I think Goodreads has become this huge marketing platform, so they're asking people to do giveaways on Goodreads. I think if your book starts doing relatively well on Amazon, they start asking people to do tweet chats on the Amazon handle. So yeah, there's a lot of like marketing going on for books.
Which brings me to the next question. Like, has the author now become a salesman?
I think you have to be. Yeah, absolutely. I think the objective. What's your objective? I think there are authors come with two objectives. One objective of the author is, I want to write. I want my story out there. And that's a great objective to have. I think if you're a storyteller, that's an instinctual thing that you have to do. The other author is, I want my story to be read by others. I think I fall in the latter camp. And if I want my story to be read by others, I think I have to do marketing. I think you have to be a little salesy. There's a lot of stuff that I'm not comfortable doing. For example, I know it might just be like a legend in publishing circles, but what I heard about an Amish is that Amish spends money from his own pocket to actually go to individual crosswords, big crosswords in cities, and pay the shopkeeper there to tell him that, can you put my book on the counter? Okay, so now I don't have that much money, and second is I'm not that comfortable doing that. I've told Harper guys that, okay, you know what, if the book actually sells well, then maybe they can feature it on the grid, which most bookstores have now, where you put this thing. The other thing which came up, which I was not very comfortable doing, was paid reviews. So you hire an agency who will find people to write positive reviews for you on Amazon, on Goodreads and things like that. So that was, again, that's like about 20,000, 30,000 something to get about 10 reviews out there. So that, again, something I wasn't comfortable.
There's a lot of murkiness in the...
Yeah, there is. I think marketing has become that thing that marketing is no longer organic, which is something that you say in advertising. Nobody remembers a great line, or nobody remembers a good ad. You have to pay people to kind of look at your ad or look at your pitch. So yeah, there is a lot of murkiness around it. That's why I think if a book actually manages to become successful through word of mouth, that's probably the best thing that can possibly happen.
Yeah. And I think you have a storyline from another book, the publishing industry.
Yeah, but somebody has to die. I'll have to kill the publisher. I'll have to kill somebody else.
To talk about crime fiction in India in English, why has it taken so long for it to come up? I don't know. I mean, when you talk in the vernacular, you have Feluda, you have a Vyomkesh Bakshi, and then you have a lot of Hindi writers like Surendranath Pathak, who sells by hundreds of books. But in the English scene, it's very less. It's just recently come. I'm sure like there's one Ankush Saikia. He's been coming out with 3-4 books. Then there's this girl, Anuradha Little or something. She's come up with the Mughal story, whodunits. So why do you think has there been such a gap? I mean,
I really I think one of the interesting things is, like you said, I think Bengali fiction has had an inherent this thing of the detective has been an integral part of Bengali fiction. But apart from Bengali fiction, I don't really know.
There's a lot in. I think there's a lot in Hindi, and then there's a lot in Chennai.
Yeah, so even Surendra Pathak is incredibly influenced by American pulp fiction. I mean, he's influenced by Stanley Gardner. He's influenced by the guy who wrote The Saint. He wrote a whole bunch of books on The Saint. So I think what's happened is, when Indian fiction, at least from my perspective, when Indian fiction found its place under the sun, where it started getting international acclaim, it wasn't through commercial fiction. I think it was through literary fiction. The Arundhati Roys, the Amitav Ghoshes, the Raj Kamal Jhas. So I think because of that, what the marketable or the commercial fiction suddenly was literary fiction. So people were getting into that. I think, and the moment you see the books which started selling, that is a trend that popular fiction in India has followed. Chetan Bhagat wrote about IIT life. You suddenly had a whole bunch of authors writing about the IIT life. You had Rajendra Singh and there's this girl, Harper girl, I forget the author's name, who are writing love stories and sad stories and things like that. That has suddenly become fiction. Amish started writing about action mythology, and that has suddenly become a trend. So I think whatever has become successful, whatever has earned people money and acclaim, that's the genre that has done well. Unfortunately, I don't think that has happened for crime and crime fiction.
It's coming up now.
It has, and the strange thing is, I think we've reached a point where the largest selling or the most investment that a publishing house actually puts into a genre today is mythology and crime. I mean, you go to any of the publishing house events and you'll just see crime writers. So yeah, crime has come up in the past, let's say 2 years or so, and mythology has been kind of just it's been up there for the last 6.
Yeah. Henning Mankell is one of my favorite writers, So he says that crime is a mirror to society, to the ups and downs in the society. So what do you think it is? What do you think about it?
I think crime is a great way to reveal the flavor of the society. For example, the way people talk. What are their daily problems? Not big social problems, but rather there's this nice author. His name is Salil. He's Salil Mazumdar, I think. So he writes there's this publishing house called Fingerprint. So he writes a bunch of police procedural books, which star a Pune policeman and his constable. And the way he writes is, he literally writes Pune galis. He writes things that anyone outside Pune probably won't be able to get it. But he writes, which is like, it's very, you can feel Pune in the language. I think crime is a great way, because crime, I think, exists at the level of the street. The moment when you write a little bit up there, it becomes thriller. So I think that's the difference between crime writing and thriller writing. Thriller writing is, you can just take a large plot where you're moving countries and you're moving somewhere. Pure crime writing is about street. What are people doing on the street? How are people behaving on the street? So I think that's what's great about crime writing.
Okay. Could you tell us about your how the book got published?
Okay, yeah, sure.
That'd be nice,
So, I wrote, like I said, I was writing on my own. I'd kind of written a bunch of manuscripts. So the first thing I realized, because I sent it out to a bunch of publishers, was that publishers don't really read manuscripts that you send like without any backing, if they don't know you. So I realized that I have to talk to an agent. I pitched my story, I pitched my manuscript to a bunch of agents. And then Kanishk from Writer's Side, which is one of the probably the biggest agency right now in South Asia. He was interested in my manuscript, but not interested enough to take it up. So he kind of read my manuscript, sent it back to me, gave feedback, and I kind of did this to and fro with him for about 3 years. And then finally, he kind of picked up my manuscript, and he works really quickly. So picked up my manuscript, I sent it to him in the morning. By the evening, he said that, okay, I'm really interested, I'm going to pitch tomorrow.
Okay.
So next day, he went, pitched to, I think, 10 publishing houses, including Harper, Penguin, I think Fingerprint, Juggernaut, all these guys. And immediately after that, I think Harper was his third meeting, and then Harper told him that, okay, stop pitching. We are really interested. We'll offer him a 2-book deal. So just stop pitching. So, and that evening he told me. And that was probably the most excited I've been about this book. After that, the publishing and all, I didn't really. I was like, okay, sure, it's happening now. But that the day when Harper said, okay, we're going to sign you on, was probably the most excited I've been. So that happened. They signed me on. This was my first book, so I was obviously very naive. So I thought I will go to Harper's office and I'll sign the contract there, and it's going to be this big romantic thing. And I went there and I met my editor, but the contract wasn't ready. So I just sat, talked to them for about 2 hours, and I left Delhi and I came back. So the contract signing takes a long time. So that took about a month and a half, 2 months. It came to me, I signed the contract, and after that it was, because the manuscript was ready, I sent it to them. They said they'll take about 4 months to read the entire manuscript and come back with line by line edits. And that's what they did. In the meantime, I had to start working on the marketing plan. And yeah, so I got my final manuscript, I think, in January of this year. I read through the feedback. Fortunately, there wasn't much. I returned it to them. They gave it another read, which was a pure copy read. And then they sent it back. I approved the copy, and yeah, in the meantime you have to do cover design, and so you work with
You're also involved with the cover design.
So yes, they wanted me to kind of do a brief. So I worked with an artist I know to come up with a visualization of what the book would look like. So I kind of sent them that visualization. They looked at it and they used that as a brief to their in-house design person, and then they designed the brief. And yeah, that was kind of it. The cover is pretty much the last thing, and then the marketing kind of starts going on.
Any interesting episodes which happened during that time, during the publishing? Surprising, interesting.
So yeah, I mean, the amount of time it takes is just surprising. I thought it would just happen. I thought the book, because I got really excited and I told everybody that, oh, I've signed a book contract, it's exciting, and everybody was cheering me on. And then 2 weeks later, they said, okay, now you will actually sign the contract. So I told everybody, and they were really excited, and they said, yeah, good. And then 1 month happened, and then they said, okay, now it's the final contract. So I told everybody, and they were like, okay, it's enough now. So that was something interesting. I think the fact that they were talking about the marketing for such a long time, and it literally only, the marketing plan happened in the last month.
Okay.
That was very exciting, because I thought that would be where everything would be going in. That was interesting, because I'm in advertising, so I know deadlines are really, really tight. And that's what I saw here. That, they wanted to do a big national marketing plan, but they literally did it in the last month. Okay. So that was strange.
And would you have any advice for any young writers here?
First thing is, don't give up your day job. So writing does not pay in India. Unless you're like an Amish or a Chetan Bhagat, it does not pay. So do not give up your day job. I think you need to write at least 2 to 3 books before you even start thinking about quitting your day job to become a full-time writer. The second thing is, I think there are 2 ways of writing. One is the way Stephen King puts it. You have to treat writing like you treat physical exercise, which is, even if on days that you don't want to go to the gym, you just go to the gym. It's the same way with writing. Even on days where you think you're going to write utter shit, just go and write. Doesn't matter what you're going to write. Just sit in front of the computer or sit in front of your diary and write. The second author is what I'm not disciplined. I'm very lazy. So there were months where I went without writing, but then there were days where I went, weeks where I went, where I wrote every single day for about 6 hours in the night, from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. in the morning. So you just need to kind of trust those days when you suddenly feel like, okay, like you suddenly watched. So what used to happen is I went and watched a great movie, and I come back and I'm feeling
Good,
that
yeah.
that that was a great movie. I want to kind of tap into the same spark that that person felt. So I'll go and start writing. And so you need to feel those days. So those days, kind of, if there are many of those days, then you're a lucky writer.
Yeah.
If there aren't many of those days, then you take 5 years to write the book.
Wait it out.
Yeah.